Hi, I'm Jolie,
And I'm Charlie.
and welcome to Teatime Talks, the Language Addict's weekly podcast to help your English listening skills, where we talk about everything and anything. This week, we're talking about restaurants. So to start off, I'd like to ask you, Charlie, what is your favourite restaurant?
If I had to pick, I would probably say Wasabi, which, if you've never seen it, as far as I know, it's only in the UK, but maybe it's elsewhere. But it's basically a Japanese restaurant, but it's quite casual. It's somewhere between like a restaurant and sort of like almost like a fast food place, almost like, I don't know. It's very casual. Basically, you go in, they have fridges with chilled food, for example, sushi, onigiri, and things like that. And then they also have like a hot food section, where there's hot bentos like katsu curry and things like that. So it is a restaurant, but it's quite casual. The one closest to us is in a big train station, and it's quite like open plan. So you can see around. It's not like an enclosed space. So it's quite casual, which I enjoy because I can just kind of go there whenever I'm in the mood for it.
It's a weird amalgamation of almost a grocery store and a restaurant, in that everything is already everything is already made and packaged up, and you simply go and pick what you want, take it to the till, and pay for it. There is seating available in the one which is nearest to us. I don't know if that is the same for every wasabi store, but it's almost more so, I would say, fast food, because you're not meant to sit there for a long time and eat it. You know, that's why I would say it's a perfect place to be in a train station, because people go, they grab it, they can take it with them, and if they're there for a small changeover, you have time to just eat it and go. Um, I will say the food at Wasabi is very delicious for essentially what is fast food. A lot of the time, it's very well made. It's fresh. It's also nice to have fast food that is relatively healthy.
Yeah, for sure. That's very true. I'd say maybe the reason you wouldn't necessarily think it's fast food is because it's not unhealthy. Like a lot of the time when you say fast food, you associate it with like burgers, you know, things like that. You don't really associate it with like, I don't know how else you could describe it, but like quite hearty food, quite like well made, healthy food.
A lot of vegetables.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like it's in your head, it's kind of hard to associate that with fast food. But in terms of just purely how it works, it basically is fast food. But yeah, very healthy, very tasty. I enjoy it.
It's also quite affordable. It is not the cheapest option for a lunch, one may say, but in terms of fast food, I would say for the food that you receive and the quality of the food, you do get your money's worth. For example, one of our favourites is the bento box, which has sweet chili chicken and rice, which also comes with a little bit of salad on the side. And that's normally about £8.50, I think. And it's a substantial portion of food. It's very fulfilling for a lunch or even a dinner. It's not as though it's a snack
Yeah.
food. Um, I feel like it is also very popular because Asian food is very popular in the UK, especially before it was mainly just Chinese food, whereas now it's very much Japanese and Korean food that is dominating the restaurant sphere, one may say, and not even just restaurants, but just food places in general. Do you agree?
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I would say as well, I'd say Chinese takeaways and Chinese restaurants are quite well established in the UK. Same with Indian food and things like that. But I'd say Japanese food is kind of like almost like a new, slightly untapped market. And I think part of why wasabi does so well is because most Japanese places are more like sit down restaurants. You can't really, well, you could, but it's not very common to like order Japanese food in from like one of these restaurants. So being able to like go to wasabi and either just get it and eat it straight away, or I see a lot of people just take it home with them as well. So I think it's a really good place in that way because it's quite unique. It's quite hard to get Japanese takeaways in the UK.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Even though I'm sure there is many Japanese restaurants that have the option for you to take food away, it is more of a an ordeal to have to go and order and wait and then take it. It's a bit more of a Chinese takeaway, a harder version of a Chinese takeaway, one may say, because as Charlie said, it Chinese is so established here now. It could take you like half an hour to call up your local Chinese takeaway, order food, and receive it. Whereas Japanese restaurants and Korean restaurants are more restaurant based, as in sit down based, that it's kind of not, there's not really a market for takeaway Japanese and Korean food as of yet. I am seeing more come about. Um, our city, one of the biggest cities near us is Birmingham, and there is a lot more Korean restaurants that are quite quick service now. There's one particularly that I really enjoy that sell kimbap and corn dogs, which you can go in, you can grab it, and it takes like 5-10 minutes max if it's completely fresh, which is super good because it is the thing of a lot of the food is a little bit healthier than if you went to McDonald's or KFC or Subway. There's just more variety, I
Yeah.
think.
For sure there is. And yeah, I agree with you. I think I'm seeing more and more Korean restaurants open up in our area. And I do think the market is a bit different in London compared to where we live. I'd say from what I've seen of like other YouTubers when they've done like challenges in London where they order food and things like that, there are more Japanese restaurants and more Korean restaurants. And in general, there's a wider variety because London is such a big place and so many people there. Whereas in the average UK city, it's still kind of up and coming. So it's really nice to see more Korean and Japanese restaurants open. There's also one in our city that's recently opened called Kokoro, which is also a chain restaurant. And it's quite similar to Wasabi, except it's not just Japanese food, it's like a mixture of Japanese and Korean food. So that's also been quite interesting to see.
Yeah, I had never heard of this restaurant until it moved into our town, and it seems to be having quite good reviews. I have yet to try it, but I definitely agree that fast food, fast Asian food, one may say, is definitely on the up and coming. There is quite a well known, well loved Japanese restaurant chain in the UK called Wagamama's, which I'm not sure if it's a worldwide chain. I don't know if I've ever seen it anywhere else, but I could be wrong. And it is simply what it says on the tin. It is a Japanese restaurant, and it is very famous for their katsu curry, um, and their ramen bowls. Their menu isn't that extensive, if I remember right.
Yeah, it's not. I've only been, I think, one time. And it is quite expensive. I will say that it's not cheap. But it definitely is popular for the katsu curry. I think when I went, I had the ramen and some gyoza and things like that, and it was definitely very tasty. And it's, I would say, probably yeah, the most kind of widespread Japanese food chain in the UK. There's, even where we live, there's one or two of them, so it's definitely doing well.
As someone that's been to Japan and also tried Wagamama's, would you say it's authentic? How true to actual Japanese food is the food you get at Wagamama's?
That is a very good question. I mean, the ramen was very tasty. I don't know how similar I'd say it is to actual Japanese ramen. I think actually probably the thing that was the most different was the gyoza. I ordered some like vegetable gyoza, and I kind of expected them to just be like normal gyoza with vegetables in, obviously, but they weren't. They were like green colored, and they were quite different to what I expected, which I never saw in Japan. And I think ramen in general, like in Japan, is almost kind of seen as a fast food as well. It's definitely not. I feel like in the UK, ramen is quite expensive, first of all, and it's also seen as like you need to put a lot of effort into it. It's very kind of like there's a lot of ingredients and things like that. Whereas in Japan, it's equally as tasty, if not more tasty, but it's a lot cheaper and it's also seen as a very casual, common food. And so I feel like the way it's made is a bit different. But in general, I'd say the ingredients and things like that are definitely similar in Wagamama's, but I think just the overall style of it and the overall flavor is a bit different.
I feel like not only with the food, but the decor and layout of Wagamama's is very specific, and that's something I don't enjoy from Wagamama's. I don't think the food is bad, neither do I think it is in any way not worth the money, one may say. I do think it is expensive, But the one thing I hate the most about Wagamama's is the layout of the restaurant because, and obviously this will differ from store to store, um, but a lot of the time their main seating is just long benches with no gaps or separation in between. And so a lot of the time, especially if it's busy, you are sitting down and eating directly next to another person who you probably do not know. Which for some people and some cultures may be very common and very normal, but for British people is quite off-putting and a bit jarring. I don't feel comfortable sitting next to a stranger. Like, and when I say sitting next to, I mean like we are on the same bench. There is hardly any gap between us. I don't feel really comfortable sitting and eating like that because I don't know. I feel a little bit out of my comfort zone. I feel like I'm interrupting them. They're interrupting me. We're both kind of like don't really want to be next to each other, but we're here now. Um, so that's what puts me off about Wagamama's the most, and of course the price is it is quite expensive for what it is. I will say, even if the food is nice, um, there's not really another Japanese kind of chain restaurant that I can really think of that we have over here. There will be some obviously in specific cities, but nationwide, sorry, I can't really think of any more. Can you?
No, I can't. I think Wagamama's is the only one that's consistent across the entire of the UK. I mean, there's definitely cities that have like a couple of the same restaurant, but it's more so just within that city or within that region. Whereas nationwide, I don't think there are any others. But I definitely do agree with you with the Wagamama's thing. I do think the layout of the restaurant is really odd. And I think maybe that's also what's a bit inauthentic, maybe. Not just the food necessarily, but the kind of layout of everything. Yeah, again, when you're in Japan, ramen is more like a casual thing, and that kind of food, katsu and stuff, it's very common. You can go to literally any like teishoku restaurant, which is like a set menu restaurant. They all have the same food. Generally, it's very similar. It's very cheap. But also just the layout of the restaurant, it's a very casual restaurant. It's just like, some chairs, some tables, nothing fancy. Whereas you can tell that Wagamama's really tries to make itself fancy.
They definitely try to market themselves more of a upscale fast. It's not fast food because you sit down and you have to wait for them to cook it, and even though you can order from there to take home, it I don't think it qualifies as fast food, but it definitely tries to differentiate itself from other chain restaurants by trying to be a little bit posher.
Mm. Yeah, I do think that is true. And I also think that, again, because it is kind of the only Japanese food chain in the UK, it kind of has a bit of a monopoly on the industry. And so it can charge high prices and it can market itself as a bit more of a fancy place. Like, I'm sure it thinks it's authentic. No offense, I'm not saying it's not. But in terms of the decor and everything, it's definitely fancier than the average place in Japan would be. And I think that's partially why it feels a bit different. Because I'm sure, if you go to Tokyo and you go to like some sort of Michelin star restaurant or somewhere that's quite upscale and fancy, maybe it would look like that, but the average place doesn't. And I also find that a bit off-putting with restaurants in general, personally, if it feels a bit too like serious and fancy. Like if I'm going to a restaurant, I'm going to like, talk to friends, have some food and like chill for a while. I don't really like going into a restaurant and feeling like uncomfortable, feeling like it's kind of hard to get people's attention if it's busy. If it's a bit fancy, I just feel a bit out of my depth. And just a bit uncomfortable, I think.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It almost feels like there's certain restaurants where you feel like you can't talk.
Yeah.
And I don't like that because if I'm going out to eat, I'm not going out to sit in silence. I'm going out to talk to someone or see someone. But I do completely agree with your point that Wagamama's almost has a monopoly on the game because it is the biggest of its kind. And I also think that is the same for one of, if not the biggest chain restaurant in the UK, Nando's.
Yes.
You can't mention UK food without mentioning Nando's.
This is true. Nando's is truly like the British chain restaurant, I would say. Like, obviously there's a lot of fast food restaurants, but in terms of like sit down proper restaurants, there's not that many, and I'd say Nando's is the most famous one that's specifically British.
Yeah, if you are aware of British culture at all, then you probably will be aware of the phrase a cheeky Nando's, which purely just means I'm going for a Nando's. It's kind of seen as a treat. It's not really something that I would say is affordable for every family to have very often, maybe, but that could just be me.
Yeah, I definitely have always felt like Nando's is a little bit expensive for what it is. I would
Yeah.
say, like, obviously some restaurants are expensive, but you understand it because it's like, uncommon food or whatever. Nando's, I think, is a little bit overpriced, and I know I've heard other people online talk about this. The prices have gone up a bit recently as well. So it is a little bit expensive, but it's also quite a common choice if you're just kind of going out with friends for some food for dinner. Like, I remember when I was in secondary school, it was kind of the go-to for my friend group if we were like going out for food. We would always go to Nando's. So it's definitely a popular option.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And if you are unaware of what Nando's is, it is a Portuguese peri peri restaurant. So it focuses on chicken, peri peri chicken to be exact. And it kind of has a lot of selling points that when it came about in the UK, nowhere else really had. So you can pick what kind of chicken you want, as if you want like butterfly chicken or chicken wing, chicken thigh, and then you pick your like level of spice. And it's delicious. I will agree. I love Nando's, and I think it's really delicious. I like the atmosphere of Nando's as well. It's kind of chill. It's not too serious. In fact, it's not serious at all. Um, I enjoy the fact that they have like refillable drinks, which is very uncommon in the UK. You will not find that anywhere. In pubs, you will not get free refills. In fast food places, you will not get free refills. The only place that I really know where you can have free refills, or in the UK they're normally called bottomless. So if anything is advertised as bottomless, it means that you can keep getting refills of it. Is Nando's, I think.
The only other one I know that does that is Pizza Hut.
Oh, okay.
They do it, I'm pretty sure. But other than that, I can't think of any others. But I do agree with you. Nando's is definitely not so much of a serious restaurant, which I enjoy. Although I think the vibes definitely differ from location to location.
Yeah.
Like, the Nando's that I've been to in Birmingham is quite a nice one in terms of like the seating and the layout of it. There are two. But the one that's like outside in the main street, I would say is a nice location. It's quite busy still, but it doesn't feel like you're in the way. Whereas we went to one in London before in Euston. Well, actually, we've been to it multiple times. And it's very busy as well, but the layout of the restaurant just feels like you're in the way all of the time. And I think it's mainly because it's kind of, there's a lot of tables with like chairs, if that makes sense. But the chairs are kind of in the aisle where people are walking, which I don't really like.
There's a lot of people in a very small amount of space in those kind of restaurants. And yeah, Nando's is always busy. No matter where you go in the country, no matter what time, I would say Nando's is probably always busy. Nando's is definitely a restaurant. I mean, I don't think there's any argument that it could be fast food. It is not. But also, it does close at like a reasonable time. It closes about 10 p.m. Whereas now, a lot of fast food restaurants here do stay open for considerable amount of time till the early hours. There is some McDonald's, for example, that are 24 hours. Um, but yeah, quickly to end on Nando's, I think it is probably one of the most loved restaurants in the UK. And I mean, I would highly recommend it. I know that it is now, or maybe always had been, international, because I think they have some Nando's in America now, which is a bit insane. But it's very, again, it's unique. There's nothing else like Nando's on the market. There is knockoff ones, one that I can think of that is very popular is called Pepe's Piri Piri.
Ah, yeah.
I don't really think that's a lot of the time they don't have seating in the stores. It's just purely like you deliver it.
Yeah.
But even that being a knockoff Nando's and being a delivery service is so expensive. I don't know if you've seen the menu.
Yeah, I've been to Pepe's, I think, one time. I went to the one near our university one time. That one did have seating, but the vibes were just a bit strange in there.
It's like people don't really sit there.
Yeah, it's not the kind of place where you like sit and enjoy your food and take your time. It feels like you need to kind of eat and then be gone. But it is somewhat expensive for what it is. I'd also say it's kind of like the fast food version of Nando's. It's definitely more a bit like KFC almost, but like the Nando's version. But yeah, I think it just goes to show that Nando's is quite unique in that sense because I didn't even know it was Portuguese. I honestly can't think of any other similar restaurants that do that kind of food.
You'll be hard pressed to find someone that doesn't like Nando's because unless you don't like chicken, I mean, there is vegetarian options like they have halloumi and they have, I think they have something else.
Yeah,
as well.
they have like I'm pretty sure they have like bean wraps as well and things like that.
But unless like you really don't like chicken, there's not really anything for you to not like. You can have the chicken however you want it. You can have whatever spice or well, I say whatever. You can choose your spice and your taste to your tastes. So essentially, you can't really go wrong. Um, and again, it's just a good place to go. You can go there casually if you want to just have some food with some friends, or even if you just want to go by yourself at a lunchtime. No one would bat an eyelid. But you can also go for a nice meal if it's like a birthday or something, which me and you have done many times. Um, Something I do want to touch on before we kind of really go into like the fast foods is one that you brought up, and it was Pizza Hut. Now, I would say when we were younger, pizza restaurants were everywhere. You always went to Pizza Hut for a birthday or some sort of celebration. And I would say that while there is still quite a few around, maybe they're not as popular anymore.
I would agree. I would say that maybe part of it is just kind of it doesn't seem like the price makes sense as much anymore. Like pizza is it is fast food essentially, but when you go to a pizza restaurant, the prices are quite high. Even when you get them delivered, I think they're quite expensive. So I don't tend to order them. But the thing is, nowadays you can go to any supermarket and buy a very nice pizza for like £5, and that's on the expensive end. But they're equally as tasty in my opinion. So I just don't think for a lot of people it makes sense to spend like £12 going to eat a pizza in a restaurant like that.
No, I completely agree. There needs to be more to the restaurant than pizza for I feel like people to really want to go. So like when I remember when we were younger, the whole appeal of Pizza Hut was the fact that it had an unlimited salad bar, which everyone loved. And then it also had the bottomless ice cream, which everyone loved. And I guess also the ability to, I'm pretty sure, I don't know if it's how they still do it or if it changed, how long ago it changed. But if I'm remembering rightly, the way it was a pizza buffet.
Yeah,
there was like trays of pizza, and you went and picked what slice you wanted. So essentially, you could have a slice of everything, and then you're not stuck with one big pizza of the same thing, which I think was its appeal. But they just don't seem to be around anymore. I mean, our local one isn't there anymore. It got turned into a Tim Hortons, which is another. So, and the only one I know of is in Birmingham, in the centre of Birmingham, and I haven't been in there. But I feel like there's also a thing to say between there's very different types of pizza or Italian restaurants. There's like Pizza Hut and what's another one that's in well, yeah, but there's Domino's and Papa John's, which I would say Papa John's is not popular here.
No,
I've never had Papa John's. I don't really know anyone that would choose to have Papa John's. The two main pizza ones here are Pizza Hut and Domino's, but the big difference between those two is that you can't sit in and eat in a Domino's restaurant, you can purely order them. But there is a very big difference between those pizzas and like a Bella Italia.
Yeah.
Or a Zizzi's or a Franco Manca, which is even more popular. So that those are kind of more high end, very loosely, in that they are more sit down and slightly more serious than a Pizza Hut, for example. But also Bella Italia and Zzz's are more so like chain Italian restaurants. So is Franca Manca? Franco Manca. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called.
Never had it.
It's more, I would say it's posher than Bella Italia and Zzz's, or Pizza Express is another one.
Yeah.
But I would say like Bella Italia is more Italian foods, whereas Zzz's and Pizza Express are more pizza based. But they're all like not really authentic, and they're not really posh. But you can sit down and have a nice meal in them, whereas Pizza Hut might be it's a bit loud, it's a bit garish, it's a bit kid friendly, one may say.
Yeah, I would say that's definitely true. I've been in the Pizza Hut in Birmingham quite a few times, and even considering it's the main chain, well, not the main chain, but the main store, I guess, in such a big city, it's really kind of hidden. It's like you can barely even see from the outside that it's a Pizza Hut, and then it's like down some stairs. It's a bit ominous, not gonna lie. It's like being in a basement. But every time I go there, it's a very kind of, I don't know how to describe it. It's a very weird vibe. There's always kids in there running around, which is fine, but it's a bit like, whoa. And then it's not usually super, super busy, but obviously they still have the buffet with the different pizza slices that you can choose from. But I think it closes at 3 p.m. So I feel like it's quite busy from like midday to 3 p.m. But maybe after that it's not as busy because it just doesn't seem as cost effective. But I definitely do think there is a very big difference between a pizza restaurant and an Italian restaurant. Yeah. I went to an Italian restaurant in Merry Hill before, and I don't know the name of it. But I went there with some of my friends, and it was definitely a bit more fancy. It was like a sit-down restaurant. They didn't have a massive menu. It was basically just, pasta, pizza, like calzone, and just kind of lasagna. But at the same time, I can't really think of much more Italian food anyway. So I think they're somewhat limited, but there's definitely a big difference between somewhere that just does pizza and somewhere that is an actual restaurant, I guess, that has more variety.
I definitely think there is a big thing in the UK where certain cuisines are more susceptible to be fast food, in, out, get your food and leave, and sit down ones. I feel like Italian leans more towards the sit down ones, the more posher ones. Even like, I feel like maybe if we put it in the way of like, would you take a date there? Yeah. Would I take a date to Pizza Hut? Maybe if you were like 12.
Yeah.
But would I go on a date to Bella Italia? Yes, I have. It's enjoyable because it's kind of more, while it's, all of these restaurants we've said so far are kid friendly. You can take children and families in there. You are more likely to kind of be able to have a sit down, more adult meal in those kind of Bella Italia, Zzz's. I mean, I've never been in a Pizza Express, so I don't know if that's kind of not as, I don't know. Whereas I don't really think there's any Italian kind of quick service restaurants. But one that I did think of is that in the UK, Mexican food tends to lean towards more quick service food. I only know of one Mexican chain restaurant, which is Chiquitos, which is very rare. You don't find it as much anymore. Whereas there is quite a few Mexican based cuisine quick service restaurant. There's quite a lot of reiterations of the same thing. So there's burrito, there's tortilla, and they're what they say on the tin, in that you go, you make a burrito, you leave. Or you go, you make your burrito, you sit down on a stool, you eat your burrito, and then you leave. Do you agree with that? I feel like there's quite a lot of quick service, like burrito Mexican food places.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I always have kind of the same reaction when I talk to my international friends about this, especially when I talk to my American friends. They're always very surprised by the lack of Mexican restaurants in the UK. I guess part of it is just like a proximity thing, because I guess not that many Mexican people have come over here to set up these kind of chains compared to other people. But yeah, we kind of do lack Mexican restaurants. Chiquitos, I think, is the only one that I've seen with my own two eyes, because there's one not too far from here. But I've never been inside of it, and from what I remember when I looked at the menu, I think it was a bit expensive.
Yeah, it is definitely expensive. It is definitely not authentic. It's very westernized. Westernized is the right word to use? Anglicized, yeah. Mexican food, and it is expensive. I mean, I went there a few times when I was younger, but I've not been there in years, and it's just more so. Again, there's not really another one that's in competition. So where else are you going to go if you want that kind of food? You know?
Yeah, I'd agree. I genuinely cannot think of another Mexican chain restaurant. The only ones I can think of are the fast food ones like Tortilla and things like that, where it's just kind of casual. You go and you kind of pick your food and then you take it with you. But yeah, I don't think there's that many Mexican like proper sit down restaurants. At least not chains. There are more independent ones, I'm sure, especially in like London. But in terms of chains, I really can't think of any.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting thinking about like the most popular chain restaurants and food chains in the UK, that there really is like a lean towards like certain cuisines go either way. Um, we have spoken for about half an hour now, and we still have so much left to speak about in terms of chain restaurants. So I think we might leave it here for this week and then come back next week and we'll continue telling you all about the weird and wonderful world of British chain restaurants, what's our favourites, which ones we'd recommend you to go to, and also what you want to know the most. Is McDonald's good in the UK?
Now that is the real question, isn't it?
That is the real question. So we will bid you adieu and we hope to see you in the next video.
Bye.